We are recording the interview of William J. Maki. This interview is being conducted by Ericka Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Holiday Inn at 2800 Presidential Drive in Dayton, Ohio. It is 4:06 p.m. on June 6, 2019. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing well today.
Fantastic. We're so happy that you're here.
You're welcome.
Enjoying yourself in Dayton, Ohio, I assume?
Technically Fairborn, but yes.
Okay. When and where were you born?
I was born May 2nd, 1945, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, so this isn't too far from home.
No.
Okay, all right. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My father was Walter Uno Maki. That's a Finnish name. He could not go on active duty in World War II because of his training and technical expertise. He became an aircraft engine instructor for men that were entering the Army Air Force. My mother was a bank clerk at the time in Minneapolis. My father taught at probably what is now Offutt Air Base in Nebraska, and that was his job during the war. And what else?
Is that something that he regretted?
No. After the war, he was hired by Firestone Tire Company to maintain their executive fleet, and I grew up helping him work on airplanes. So I'm very familiar with reciprocating engine aircraft and jet engine aircraft.
Was that like something you did after school for fun?
Usually not after school, but on the weekends, prepping for Monday flights. Sometimes I would go along as an assistant. I remember changing spark plugs in the snow on a runway in Connecticut or Rhode Island, somewhere up there. The Firestones had an area. The joys of maintaining aircraft in all types of weather was taught to me very early.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
I had one older brother, two younger brothers, and a sister.
There's a total of 5 of you.
Total of 5 in the family. He was an only child, so I guess he wanted to have a big family.
Your mother was on board?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. Did any of them serve in the military?
One younger brother did serve in the Army and stateside duty, and then he went to Korea and came back. This was all in peacetime. There were no active wars there, and I think he did 3.5 years and got an early discharge when he hit the West Coast. So that's the only other sibling who's been on active duty.
Were you guys in the military at the same time?
I was, yes. My time of duty is from 1967 to 1987 active duty, and I got my final discharge in 1997 for 30 years. I was in the Ready Reserve for 10 years, called up for Desert Storm, but not deployed.
Okay. What were you doing before you entered the service?
Well, of course, like everyone else, I graduated high school, and Vietnam was going on, and you had a good chance of being drafted unless you got a student S2 deferment. So I was thinking of going into machine, become a machinist, tool and die maker, which was also a deferred occupation. But my father was really adamant that all the children go to college. So I went to college at Kent State University and graduated with a bachelor's degree in geography, a minor in geology and biology.
Why'd you pick those?
I found out much later in life I'm a Mensa, that's the high IQ society, and I'm an avid reader, and I just enjoyed learning about these different areas that I thought I might perhaps get a job after I got out of the military, because after you got out, if you got out of college, you would be drafted. If you got a degree, you could still be drafted. So I went the ROTC route and got my commission as a second lieutenant in June of '67.
Okay. When you were in high school, were you a part of any after-school programs, played any sports?
No, none of sports. My older brother was. I'm not sure about the younger ones because they were so far behind me. I'm a singer. I'm a second bass. I was in the a cappella choir and a special group of 8 men singing a cappella going around town. But usually after school, I was working during the, well, I'll say 7th through the 11th grade, 7th through 10th grade, I had a paper route, earning money. Of course, weekends with my dad at the airport. That was about it. I had a few other odd jobs after school in my junior and senior year, making money.
Did your dad have any of your other siblings help with the airport jobs?
No.
Just you?
They didn't have the, I'll call it a mechanical expertise. Some people have the gift. My dad did, I do. I have a nephew who does. I've got other brothers who would not pick up a screwdriver at the proper end. They're just not into mechanics. They can talk, they can write, but one became a teacher, one became a computer programmer. My little sister got a finance degree, worked in some banks, and then she married a Navy guy, so then they deployed out. She worked, I'm not sure she worked at all during her service time.
Okay. You picked the Air Force, or the Air Force was chosen for you?
Kent State offered, if you can believe this, back there in the 60s, you either had to take physical ed or you could join up in the ROTC program. And at Kent State, you had a choice of Army or Air Force. Well, wasn't too sure about the Army, but I knew airplanes, so I figured I'd go the Air Force route. And so signed up for my phys ed requirement in my freshman and sophomore year. That took care of that requirement. Because you marched and you went to class and you marched and had some phys ed and had some other activities that kept you busy. Then at your junior year, if you were selected to go on, you would sign the paperwork committing you to get a degree and become a second lieutenant, and they would give you some money, small amount of money every month to help pay for your college books or college courses. So I did that. I signed up junior and senior year. I ran the student cadet newspaper for the Air Force. That was back when we did mimeograph. Turned that out like it was at least once a month for sure, maybe more often. But we ran out articles, stuff for people to learn.
What kind of articles, if you can recall?
Well, interviews with the graduating class would be one of them as they came up to our graduation from January to June. Little notes about different classes if you're interested in certain courses, a thumbnail sketch by a student who was in there. You know, this professor does this, or this would be an interesting course to take for professional development, or this is a good time filler course, but you know, you're not going to get too much out of it. So we had a little cadre of information floating around about the classes that were available. Of course, we had quite a background of students, different degrees.
Did you enjoy college?
I think so. I was very busy. I picked 3 different fields, so I was taking a lot of courses to go in there and to get to my graduation requirements. So I really did enjoy the learning. That's one of the things I enjoy.
Okay. After college, ROTC, you knew that you would be enlisted. You graduated. Did you do one of those ceremonies for second lieutenant at that time? At
graduation at Kent State, you had a ceremony for graduation with your whole class, whatever, and this was, you know, College of Nursing, College of Business, College of Arts and Sciences, which was mine. So you went across the stage, got your diploma, then the ROTC graduates zipped off to one side, got rid of our gowns. We had our blue pants on, you know, Class A's we call them, and we got our coats on, and then we came across the stage again and were awarded second lieutenant commissioning. and it trooped off, and that was the end for the ceremony. Get over to this one side, and your parents or your loved one or whoever would pin the bars on your epaulets and shake your hand, and that was it. And then 10 days later, I was gone.
Who pinned you?
My parents did. My parents did.
A very proud moment.
They were very proud. I was the second one to get a college degree, and the other, well, my third brother, I don't think he ever did get a college degree. So that's why he went to the Army. The fourth one did, and got his master's, and my little sister got hers later.
Okay. So 10 days later, you were gone where?
Well, technically I was supposed to go into Intel or Targets, but they did a background investigation and found out I knew all about airplanes.
Uh-oh.
So I was assigned to Chanute Air Force Base Tech Center, training base south of Chicago. The base is now closed. And we were taught all about airplanes, which
It was rather boring
really
for you.
didn't make a lot of whoopee for me, because they were telling me stuff I learned years ago. But I graduated from Chanute, let's see, that'd be June of '67 to about January. So '68, I was assigned to Tinker Air Force Base, the depot, and the combat support group. And that was an interesting job. I found out about additional duties because I had a biology minor. I became the base mortuary officer. I also fixed a lot of airplanes that came in cross country. One day we had a C-133 come in. He had a cracked pressurization pipe, and they were going to go over the Rockies, go to the West Coast, and they couldn't maintain pressure. And I was in my Sunday best, which I immediately managed to destroy. I took the pipe out and took it in the welding shop. We welded the crack, and I signed off, being the maintenance officer, signed off on the repair and said, "You guys are good to go. Just don't, pull any high G's with this thing. It's a weld on a pipe, so we should be okay, flat and level, and just go over the Rockies." And mortuary duty, yeah, I had to pick up a couple of bodies. One guy died in a fight in Oklahoma, was home on leave, mixed it up with some local Okie boys. Another guy decided he was going to drive from the West Coast back to Tulsa nonstop, no sleep, and he managed to find a bridge abutment on a highway. Obviously went to sleep. What else did we do? We had crashed aircraft that come in, ran a little low on fuel on final. We had many maintenance problems, which was very interesting with the number of aircraft, because Tinker in Oklahoma is about halfway between the East and the West Coast. You had a lot of traffic come through, and the pilots would get out. We'd line them up. The pilots would get out to the club party and then launch the next day and continue their trip out to the West Coast or East Coast, whichever way they're going for their flying time. What else? Oh, we had one jet disappear from radar. I had to go out. Luckily, a farmer saw this puff of smoke in the field. Everybody was notified there's a jet missing. We went out there, and we do not know what happened. There wasn't enough of the aircraft left to do an accident investigation. He basically went straight into the ground, took a 35, 40-foot jet, turned it into 10 feet of compressed metal. All we got out for the remains was his flight suit and some liquid. That was it. I mean, he was compressed flatter than a pancake. But that's what you get when you go back and recover remains. So, it was an interesting tour. Then, going on in time, come August of '70, I said I wanted to go overseas. Yes.
How long was that tour?
Active duty there was started in '68, January. So '69, we watched the Apollo moon landing. And then in '70, in August of '70, I came into Nakhon Phanom in Thailand.
So it was 2.5 years.
2.5 years there.
In 2.5 years, those 2.5 years, you were the flight deck mechanic, the chief mechanic.
Maintenance officer.
Okay, maintenance officer.
Right.
The morgue.
Base mortuary officer.
And you had one other title, right? Or just those two?
Well, I was in quality control. After I got off the flight line for about 18 months, I moved into quality control, but I still wound up fixing aircraft, supervising, signing off on the records, clearing the red X's on the forms, certifying aircraft ready to fly.
Were there no more second lieutenants or
We did not
captains?
have,
Or
we did
what?
not, that I remember, we did not have another second lieutenant.
So did all the majors and captains just party and sleep all day?
We had one other officer over me for the flight line air base group, and that was an interesting group also, the air base group. These were the airplanes assigned to take the general from Tinker Logistics Center down to other logistics centers, or shuttle parts between the logistics centers to fix airplanes. We had the B-52s at Tinker, and about that time they were having a problem with their tail rudders snapping off due to high G loads. So that was interesting, working with the depot people, looking at fracture analysis of the rudders, why the rudders were coming off, braking under loads. It's a technical thing. Anyway, they figured out what they wanted to do to strengthen the rudders and the fuselage and get these B-52s flying again.
I just don't understand why you're the only officer working on the base.
Well,
Was this you were volunteering for these positions?
I was the guy there. I was the guy there. It's on your shift, you take care of it. The mortuary duty was, something that took up your nights or weekends or maybe.
So you didn't care for partying and such?
I didn't mind partying. In fact, that one mortuary case happened on Christmas Eve. I came back to base Christmas morning after helping a county coroner go through the body, and walked in the officers club and said, "Boy, I need a drink. It's been a long day." And the bartender said, "We're not open yet." I said, "Would you call the base commander? Tell him I just got off of this case." And he called the base commander and said, "You can have whatever you want." And that was a little payback for that long day. And it, of course, getting the paperwork ready for personnel to notify the next of kin and all that. But the guy was from out of town, home on leave, so I went back to that base for their notification next of kin. Some of the base jets, let's see, we had a T-39 Sabreliner. The pilots tended to maybe think it was like a fighter and put it into a swoop or a turn a little too hard for the aircraft, exceeded its envelope of stress. We had a crack in the main spar, it was leaking fuel. We lifted the fuselage off the body, had another depot team come in, fix the spar, redo it, drop the body back on, launch it. What we also did, because the general wanted to have an 8-track at the time, we wired in, and again, I built shortwave radios when I was 13 and stuff like that. We wired in an 8-track to make sure it didn't interfere with the flight instruments. So he could sit back in a lounge chair, which wasn't part of the original configuration, and listen to the 8-track while he traveled between bases. That was the general's jet. A couple other airplanes we did, I know everybody's familiar with raw sheet metal, aluminum. We took some of the aluminum out, pickled it, cleaned it, made sure it had good corrosion, anti-corrosion paint on it. And then there's a way you can spray brown paint through cheesecloth and make it look like a wood surface. So instead of having this dull gray aluminum surface, you wound up with a very nice passenger airplane with fairly nice seats in it and looked like fake wood walls, and just little tricks we had to pass time when we weren't out there on the runway doing other things.
Can I ask which general had the fancy plane?
Pardon?
Which general had the fancy plane?
Well, the head general at the time, I don't know who he was. We were working on one plane for him, and I was in there helping doing avionics work, wiring this and that. And a guy would come in and say, "When is it going to be ready? The general wants to go." It happened like 3 times, and the last time I told him, "I don't know who you are, but if you'd stay out of my hair, I would have had it fixed 15 minutes ago instead of ask me when it's going to be ready." So everything got quiet, and then I didn't know who it was. I kept working, and we got the wiring problem fixed, and got out of there and cleaned our tools out. The passengers boarded, and the airplane taxied out, and some guy said, "Do you know who that guy was?" "No." He says, "That was the general." I said, "Well, hey, don't bother somebody who's working. You ain't going to speed it up asking the same question over and over again." We had one airplane that went down the end of the runway, and there's 4 engines, so I forget what it was. Anyway, guy was saying he wasn't getting the proper RPM out of the engine when they did the magneto test, and that's when you should have 2 magnetos for a recip engine, and you shut one off to make sure that one works, and you should keep your RPM up, and he wasn't getting his RPM up. So he said, "Well, we have to abort the mission." We're sitting there, we're watching through spy glasses, binoculars, and I told him, "You know, you need to turn your aircraft in to face the wind when you do a magneto test, because by having the airplane tail into the wind, you're not getting, it's actually slowing the propellers down." So he turned into the wind. Magneto test was good. Absolute silence. Said, "We're departing now." So knowing things of how aircraft work sometimes can assist the pilot.
What was your favorite plane?
The one that didn't break. I've been on recips and jets, and everybody's got its problems. I'm going to jump ahead to my time in Europe,
Okay.
80 to 85, F4s at the time. And we had one called the Pig. An airplane just seemed to break every other time it went. And of course, intermittent problems are extremely difficult to troubleshoot. So we got Arnold the Pig and took him out to a compass point away from the other aircraft, and where nobody would bother us. And I pulled all the maintenance people out that had weekend duty. I said, "Well, I'm on standby. I know you're on duty. Come out." And we deep handled Arnold the Pig, just looking into things everywhere. And we finally found a frayed wire bundle up in the nose of the aircraft that would only occasionally, maybe under a high G turn or something else, rub up against the fuselage, or actually a rib up there, and short out a couple wires. And it wouldn't be the same 2 wires. So that's why it was like in different systems. So hallelujah. Put the panels back on where we needed to and say, "We've got this solved." But this is a wiring problem now. I mean, a fairly big wiring problem. So we parked Arnold the Pig, and I think we called in some depot people who had wiring harness experience, because we couldn't splice it in some areas. We literally had to have a good solid wire from point A to point B. So Arnold was out of commission for about 45 days. But when he came back flying, he never broke again. It was one of the best aircraft of our fleet. So sometimes you got to dig to get down to what the root problem is.
I understand.
Yeah.
As a diesel mechanic, I understand.
All right. Sometimes you got to dig. So after my time at Tinker there, I put in for Vietnam overseas, and was assigned to Nakhon Phanom, which nobody had ever heard of.
I haven't.
Well, and so go overseas, everybody's happy, whatever. And we fly through Hawaii, and then through the Philippines, and then into Vietnam. Everybody's plane's getting lighter, people are getting off. And the last stop is Bangkok, and off we go. So the next day we got to be at personnel for processing, and the Air Force had like 5 bases there inside of Thailand, besides NKP, Ubon, Karat. So the personnel officer, sergeant, is calling people up front, and they are going out by groups. Says, "Okay, Karat, get up front, check the names off. Okay, go over there. The bus will be taking you out to your plane." And then I said, "Okay, the last group is those going to NKP." And about that time, 4 MPs come into the back of the room with their truncheons out. And the sergeant doing the departure briefing says, "We don't want any trouble now from you guys." So I knew right then wow, this is a wild outfit I'm going to. If they have to get the MPs in here to get us out to the plane or whatever happens. So I arrive at NKP, and but not sure what to do with me. They assign me to a ops squadron, and they realize I'm not a pilot technically. So then they put me into field maintenance, but I'm still assigned to the ops squadron for other reasons, whatever. So I get my room in a hooch, as they call it over there, and I go, not even checked in yet to the squadron, field maintenance squadron. Got my fatigues on, not the fatigues they're wearing there, the issue fatigues from the States, and I walk into their first shop at night. Now this is at night, like 10 o'clock at night, and you have a night shift on duty because we're doing night operations as well as day out of that location. And I walk in and I introduce myself. I'm the senior NCO, tech sergeant at the time, staff sergeant. Calls the shop to attention. I say, stand easy. Look at something to show me what you're doing. And I walk over to a set of brakes for probably, well, it could have been the A1Es, could have been the C123s. And I'm looking at the brake inspections, and if you're familiar with safety wire on nuts, you know, nuts screw in clockwise, unscrew clockwise. And the safety wire through the head of the nut, through the head of the bolt, should have been safety wire clockwise back to the left. But somebody put them in counterclockwise, which means the bolt could start coming out. So I asked the NCO, I said, this is wrong. Give me a pair of diagonal cutters called dikes. Give me a set of dikes. Oh, no, sir, we'll take care of that. I said, no, I asked you for the set of dikes. And I went and cut all the safety wires on this set of brakes that had been wired backwards. And I said, here's your dikes. I said, now you find out who did that. You can fix these if you want to, but you find out who did that. You make sure that person gets more training. What is right? What is left? And I don't want to see that problem here again. So then I went through the rest of the shops going down the flight line. But by then, the word had been passed. Everybody was waiting for me to show up in the shop and tour me around the shop as to what was going on. So the next morning I processed into the squadron, and the lieutenant colonel was in charge of the maintenance squadron. He was a formerly rated pilot. Basically looked at me and said, we've already heard about you. He and the first sergeant were there. And I said, well, thank you, sir. I'm here to do a good job. And I did. But again, that's background knowledge of how to wire stuff up in an aircraft, be it recip or jet.
How long were you there?
I was there, I got there in August of 70 and came back in July of 71. 11 months technically, got credit for a full year. The other things that happened at that base are all classified. When I left, we were told not to talk about the base or the aircraft or anything else we did, because we were technically a special operations unit, and we really weren't to be in the news.
Oh, well, I guess our interview is done.
If you look at the history of Nakhon Phanom, we were a classified base at the beginning. Later on, the news got sprung that we had an air base up there. Nobody would, we didn't see too many news people coming in. So let's see.
Is it still classified, the information?
No, you can find it now on the internet. I mean, geez, it's been 50 years. Probably after 30 years, it said you can talk about it. We had a lot of aircraft flying of different types, and of course, if you get the folder, they're passing out posters here of what flew at NKP. We have a whole lot of different units doing different things, and it wasn't all in Southeast Asia. It was over the trail in Laos. It was up in the, out of Vientiane into Laos. Yeah, the problem with being in Cambodia, I can say I didn't touch foot in Cambodia, but I don't know if 6 inches off the ground in a helicopter counts as troops get in and out. So a lot of things went on that were approved by different groups in the military and state departments of different countries, and said, yeah, we'll take American help, and we helped them. I had one mission that took me over Alaska, landed there with a cargo in my jungle fatigues in the middle of winter. I asked the people that met me, I said, could you get me some sort of a parka or coat? Which they did. And they took care of the airplane, and we flew down to the States, and I delivered the cargo, and I went back to NKP. Going back to NKP, I stopped at a store and picked up a jar of peanut butter and a jar of grape jelly. Carried that back with me. Oh, and we flew on a C-130, which made trips around all the bases. It was called the Klong, which means the canal in Thai, because the canals carry everything. So the nickname for the airplane that carries everything became the Klong. Walked into where we had an officers club mess bar, put the jar of peanut butter and jelly on the bar, and of course this is like stuff from Never Never Land. You hadn't seen this all the time here. And the bidding began. We bid up the one of the squadrons got the peanut butter and jelly for some tremendous amount, but it was something from home that nobody could get.
Do you remember the amount?
No, but it was a lot. Maybe over $50. It was big money back then.
Cool.
For a jar of peanut butter and a jar of grape jelly.
Wasn't combat pay $65 a month?
Yeah.
So,
so everybody got
$50.
together in their squadron. The word got out, and more guys show up, and they bid up the price, you know.
But $65, if that's your whole month's pay, $50 is a woo.
You know, $50
Yeah.
bucks. And of course, the squadron that got it could spread it amongst
I know.
their people. The other guys could just look on.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have any bread, actually. I think they spread it out on like a little flat bread or something.
Like crackers.
The
or
Thais
something.
cook on it. So, other classified actions, and then got my orders back to the States to go into Strategic Air Command for ICBMs. Okay, came back to the States, went to Wichita Falls for training on the Titan II system. That was the end of part of 71, and the rest of 71 was out at Vandenberg Air Force Base, West Coast, for more training, final training, and assignment to one of the 3 Titan bases at the time. So by Christmas, New Year's, I was back in Wichita, Kansas at McConnell Air Force Base with a Titan ICBM wing. First duty you do, even though the lieutenant ranked me because I was a newbie on the field in the force. I was a deputy missile combat crew commander, and after about a year became a missile combat crew commander. Worked my way through there about 4 years, then got into the Titan II trainer. Now this was a simulator, and it was rigged up to look like the main control center and the lower floor of the combat center for each Titan. It was a 3-level type control center, bunks and a kitchen upstairs, a bathroom, main control launch complex, and then downstairs a lot of other machinery, electronics. So I rigged out, every month I had something new added to the trainer. And again, my background in wiring and radio and avionics and this and that, rigged up a circuit breaker panel. Before the evaluator would just say you have a trip number breaker so-and-so, or when you put these wires in A and B, you get a certain voltage. Well, the way I rigged it up, you didn't have to use a pretend card anymore. You got the actual voltage. Rigged that puppy out pretty good. Made major there, became a sector commander over 3 missile systems. There's 9 missiles on each side, and sector commander controlled 3. The crews reported to him. He monitored their training, their evaluations. Then, darn it, I got assigned to another SAC base. So, 78, 79, I got assigned to Blytheville Air Force Base, Arkansas. SAC, B-52s, gee, I remember those. and KC-135s, and I was in charge, the head of the avionics squadron, which is more than just the radios and radars. It's actually the electronic countermeasure also that the B-52 carried. So that was a fun job, learning all about these new electronics. We had one IG inspection, and every airplane launched, every bomber and every tanker launched, no maintenance malfunctions whatsoever. So boy, were we proud. And then they came back from their run, the IG met everybody, bring us into the theater, only to find out that the operations crew bombed the wrong target on their IG run. Yes. So we'll have to do this again within 6 months, the IG said. So there's obviously a lot of training took place in the operations side about how to identify targets by radar, this and that, everything, nighttime, those guys were run ragged. Anyway, we still had to maintain the alert aircraft, always at the end of the runway, tankers and bombers. Of course, we had cartridge starts on those. Crew would run out from the alert facility, and you just basically get on board, hit the button, and the cartridge would blow smoke like a little missile, and spin the vanes and start your engine and go. In the normal maintenance, they did pass the second test, the IG. I think we had 1 or 2 aborts out of the aircraft, but that was within acceptable parameters for an IG. And then I got assigned overseas to Europe and joined 52nd Attack Fighter Wing in Spangdahlem Air Base, which is still there and active. And head of maintenance. They changed it from field maintenance and organizational maintenance and munitions maintenance, and it just became one huge maintenance squadron. So OMS I was fairly familiar with, and of course I already knew the F4, and field maintenance I was familiar with. Munitions maintenance was different. That took a whole new set of learning about the pylons and the wiring that goes into the pylons that are used to eject a bomb from the pylon, arming the weapon. So when it ejects, the pins are pulled and the bomb will arm. Or missile maintenance too. They had sidewinders and other air-to-air craft missiles. And I did a little bit of work in logistics, NATO planning, and came back from, let's see, that would be 70 to 75. Got my orders. They said, where do you want to go? I said, I'd like to go to a base where I don't have to worry about snow. Every base I've been at, I've had to worry about winter weather wear, everything else. So Homestead, because Homestead, and we had already converted at Spangdahlem into F-16s, or going through it. Homestead was converting from their unit from F4s to F-16s. So they said, well, you know both systems, go over there and help with the conversion. So got into Homestead, Florida. No snow, some cool days, but no snow. A lot of rain, humidity. One time MacDill was under a hurricane warning, and they had to scramble all their jets and aircraft down to us, which put a lot of strain on parking jets on the ramp we had. We had a radio system just coming in at the time for the F-16s. It was called the Have Quick system. The idea was you put in new radios and they would be jam-proof. They would skip a frequency together, all the jets, and no one could jam any one frequency and block messages from getting through. Well, it didn't work the first time. Went back to depot, or whoever engineered it. Second time. It took 7 different tries, engineering, electronics, to get the system to where it would work. And that was just when we were coming into getting GPS satellites, because all the radios had to get their signal off the GPS satellite, so they were in synchronization with every other radio from this clock from the satellites. It's a lot of man hours taking radios in and out of jets. But they finally got it to work. So eventually, if you persevere, you will overcome. I just put a lot of work on the maintenance folks trying to get it to work. And then I retired from active duty in July of '87 and came back up to Ohio and worked in logistics, warehousing, shipping. Got my notice to go to Desert Storm because I was like on ready reserve and had been going down to Wright Pat to get my shots in this area and stay active or whatever, deployable. But I never got the second message saying, here's your airplane ticket to go. I just was ready to stand by. And then in '97, I got my final discharge from active duty. So that's, I can say 30 years of time, 20 active, 10 on ready reserve. And that's the career. After that, I worked in some other warehousing after '97.
You worked where?
In warehousing, shipping for companies, a couple of different companies. And inventory, supply,
Logistics.
Background there. Shipping around the world to help if they wanted to ship something to Mexico or something to Canada, do the ins and outs. And finally said I've had enough at about age 68, I just said pardon me, back up here. 2010, about 2012, I just said, that's it, I'm not going to work anymore, I'm going to really retire. So I was then 67 years of age and retired. And now I'm doing other charitable items.
Okay. Do you have a bucket list?
Do I have a bucket list? Well, yes, I do. I have fixed my house every year or hired a contractor to get my house fixed for retirement. I just had an electrician go through my house for about $3,000 to fix all wiring or out of date. There's some things that were good 10, 15 years ago, but the codes have changed. It used to be if you needed an outlet in the kitchen, and if it was within 6 feet of the sink, you had to have a ground fault interrupter. Now the code requires GFCIs in every outlet in the kitchen, and every outlet in the bathroom, and every outlet in your basement, because they said if your basement floods, you're going to get shorts when the water gets up to the level of the outlet. So everything in the basement has become GFCI. He looked at an old electric dryer outlet. We have a gas dryer, but he says that's not code anymore. It was perfectly fine, but he looked at it and says, we've got to replace this outlet and the wiring going back to the main circuit box. So that's been replaced. Just all outside outlets on the house. They're nice to have, plug in something, radio, hedge trimmer. They all have to be now mounted exterior on the wood and a plastic cover that flips up. And they all have to be GFCI. Now mine were flush into the wood, the way they were installed years ago, and they were GFCI. We said, no, they can't be in the wood anymore. So we've replaced all this stuff. It's been about 5 trips by him with other jobs, because we're sort of like, I got time, we'll come fix it. So that's bucket list.
That doesn't sound like bucket list.
Well, some of the work I did myself, like plastering, wall board, stuff. What else am I doing bucket list? Well, let's see. I'm going to Finland in August.
There we go. Yes.
I was raised in northern Minnesota, right at the end of World War II. And I can say in Finn, minä olet Suomen poika, which means in Finnish, I'm a Finnish boy, kid. And we have relatives that we found out about, my dad found out about them. They contacted him. We thought everybody died in the Winter War, 39 and 40 in World War II, but actually some people did survive. So I'm going to go visit a relative. What else have I done? I've got a pilot's license.
Congratulations.
I have a welder's license. I have a scuba license, international driver's license, international radio telephone license. I've got quite a few skills, if you want to call it that.
You said we. Are you married?
Oh, I am married, yes.
So you told all that but didn't mention
well,
we?
That's part of the military career, but okay. I got married when I came back from Southeast Asia on Christmas Eve,
Where'd you meet the lovely lady?
I'd met her before I left,
Okay.
and we continued correspondence while I was in Southeast Asia. So I came back, proposed marriage, she agreed. We got married on Christmas Eve of '71. Had like 5 days of leave, and so we went to New Orleans, came back up through Texas, and back to Oklahoma, where she lived. That's where I was at, Tinker Air Force Base. And I dropped her off, and then went up to Wichita for my check-in training, and assigned to a squadron, and to find quarters. And of course, I didn't have any transient family quarters to speak of. So it took me about 4 months to find a rental. And so she finally came up after 4 months. And I think I had a guy thing, a kitchen table, 2 chairs, and a TV set on the floor, and some pots and pans and whatever in the kitchen. So, oh, and a bed. I didn't have a dresser, I just had my duffel bag on the floor in the closet. That's fine by me, but after she came in, we got furniture room, and furniture in a bedroom, and a guest bedroom, and a real dining room table, I guess, became more civilianized. And yeah.
Okay. Any children?
We have 2 children, a boy and a girl. They're both in their 40s now. Yeah. When I'm married, they're both military brats, and I wonder if moving around all that time, you learn to adapt to new schools, but you don't have a friend or friends that you grow up with, like in the civilian world, where you're in the same school system, the same city year after year. You get to know everybody. So I don't know. They've never married.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed, it could still happen. These kids nowadays, they just wait it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Having children at 40 is no big deal. They'll just wait it out.
Sure. We'll see. Well, my older brother has 2 children, so I have a niece and a nephew there. Third brother never married. The fourth brother has 2 sons, so I have 2 nephews there. And my sister has 3 boys and 1 daughter, and she had 1 miscarriage.
Oh.
She would have had 4 boys and a daughter. So we have plenty of relatives that way.
And you're going to meet your relatives in
And I'm
Finland?
going to go to the old country. Half of me, Finnish. The other half is Norwegian, but never been over there.
Okay.
I don't know anybody in Norway.
Okay. What are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
Be patient. Think all the time. Be prepared. In a way, the military training, I am a first responder. I know how to respond to medical emergencies. One of the warehouses I was at, a lady basically collapsed. And I had a guy too. He collapsed. So first responder right on, yelling at people what to do. We found out a weakness in the training that no one knew where the automatic external defibrillator, the AED, was located in a warehouse. They didn't know where to go to get it if I needed it. So after that, we changed training. So every 6 months on the training, you had to get out of the classroom, walk over and touch the AED box and come back to the classroom. That way everybody knows where it is. Yeah, we need the AED. So you find holes sometimes. People assume something. Now, assumptions can be bad. Staying up on changes makes you anticipate problems. What else did I learn in the military? A lot of good people. We got a few bad eggs every now and then, but most of the people are pretty good. They'll help each other. And it shows up in different ways, sometimes later down in life. Ich kann Deutsch sprechen, je parle français. I speak German, I speak French. We were at Niagara Falls one time, this was after I got out, and some German tourists were ready to cross the road, and they were talking, not paying attention to the lights. I mean, they were guests. So, realized they're going to step out in traffic. I gave the German warning, which is the word alarm, very loudly in my drill field voice, And it stopped him, and I explained to him, you're talking, you're not watching the lights. Here's how the lights work. And they thanked me, and they were kind of surprised that someone, out of nowhere could speak German. Same thing happened at a restaurant. A person was asking, brought up a glass, what we call a glass, and he was trying to tell the waitress, no glass, no glass. Well, that's their word for like glacier, meaning ice. They didn't want ice in a drink. Ice is not normal in Europe. They just wanted to have water or a soft drink with no ice. So I had to explain to the American. And that's what helps going around the world. You get different cultures. Right now we're entertaining the idea of a Bhutanese congregation in our church, utilizing our church on a Sunday afternoon. Again, knowing what the Far East is like and how to approach people helps a lot. So there's things you pick up as you go around, which the military really benefits from. We lived in a German village, and sometimes coming home late at night, I would pass a school and I could see the Deutsche Rote Kreuz, which is German Red Cross. And that's a Blutspende, well, blood something, well, blood donations. So I went in and tapped a pint of whatever, O negative, I'm an O negative. And I did this several times. So I didn't think anything about it. Well, one night I come back, and the German couple who lives below me in a duplex, and the lady comes running up, yelling my name, and the fact that the Burgermeister is there, which is the village chief. We would call him a mayor, perhaps. But that's a whole different culture, and the Burgermeister, nothing happens without the Burgermeister knowing about it. So he came up there to our house, knocked on the door, and asked if I was in. Their city council was behind him. Of course, he's wearing this big, long neck chain with the emblem, coat and tie and all that. And so I said, I'll be right down, still in my fatigues, get my hat on, come outside. And, German, may I help you? Kann ich Ihnen helfen? And he says, we're here at German Red Cross, Blut. He has his council secretary literally unroll a scroll. The guy reads his official announcement. Again, I catch the German blood, and American help, and all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, thank you. And he gives me this little box. Well, it's the German Red Cross version of you giving a gallon of blood. So this means more to me now than at the time. We went from an American couples in the village to the American couple. The people who lived with us were like, we live with the couple. If I went down to the Gasthaus for a beer, I didn't have to buy a beer. They were so proud that that an American would, after all this time of World War II, would think so much to give blood for their population. And it hits me more now than it did then. Then it was just sort of a thank you, but it's a real culture builder. It helps bind societies together. So again, that idea of helping. I've given blood other places too, being an O negative, they always want your blood. Yeah, it was quite a plus, I think. Nothing that the base knew about, nothing that PR got into the base newspaper. But that village was just really happy to have the American couple. So that's about all I can tell you about time in the military, other than learn how to work long hours and bad environment. At NKP, during a couple of the pushes, we just about slept in the revetments. It would just bring an airplane in, check it out, fuel it up, bomb it up, get it back out again. As long as we could get air crews that had enough rest or enough time to do another mission, we just pushed them through. But either they couldn't fly anymore or we were out of bombs or something like that. I don't think we ever ran out of bombs. Really got tired of sea rats sometimes, or squid and rice. depending on what they could buy locally. So, came back to the States. When I came back, got the biggest cup I could find at the airport and had them fill it up with milk and drink it, because you hadn't had milk in so long. And there are some cases where guys came coming back actually overdosed on milk. There's a calcium sickness from so much milk. I heard about it, but that one dose did. Of course, getting spit on and yelled at as you get off with your uniform coming back to the States. That was a shock, especially after you've been shot at. The shooting at Kent State, when that occurred, I had just finished a job, and I said, well, I graduated from there in '67, so I became the instant intel source for where was Blanket Hills at Kent State, where was the Bell they're talking about, where was the Army ROTC barracks that got burnt down that they used for training, and they had an actual small riflery inside of that. And Kent State, yeah, there was a lot of anti-war sentiment when I was there. You had pro-war on one side of the street and anti-war on the other during lunchtimes. People would, you know, why are we there losing all these people? Yeah, that was a shock finding out when we were over there that we were shooting students at Kent. Big shock, went through the units. But we got on, kept on doing what we were told to do. Any other questions you have for me at this time?
I do.
All right.
Two. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
It was a special operations unit in Southeast Asia. A lot of missions were flown that may or may not be on the books. We were told at the time not to talk to anybody about our base, what we did, any airplanes, where we went, anything else. Technically, we weren't in Laos, but everybody knows now we spent a lot of time in Laos. We supported Laotian Army. We landed at Laotian sites, small landing sites, Lima sites. Cambodia support. Other question?
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
Once you join this company called the military, your life can come apart. I have seen people go into catatonic shock with the nuclear weapons. They literally could not handle the mental stress. Some jobs are like that. Other jobs are probably 8 to 5. You get weekends off. And some of the jobs are, you get time off when you go on leave subject to recall. It just depends on your skills, what unit you get assigned to. You'll be really tasked to go the distance in some cases. I think warfare has always been like that. You have to be prepared, as I said before. You're always thinking of other options. What can you do? What can you bring? So, it's not a 9-to-5 job, not in the military. You can be tasked anytime to go anywhere.
That concludes our interview with William J. Maki. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your 30 years of military service.
You're most welcome.